Hi guys, we wanted to say thank you very much for all of your interest and your bookings for our upcoming workshop, Trauma and You, Vicarious Trauma Training. And today Rae-Anne and I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about vicarious trauma and what our workshop is for and how it may help people at risk and in need of this information. And by the way, thank you so much for all of the ticket bookings so far. We're in for a wonderful workshop coming up in March, on the 20th of March, Monday the 20th of March, and there still are tickets available, and we will leave the ticket link below this video. But for today, let's get some information to you guys about why, and who would do vicarious trauma training, who is this for, and why would you do it? So I wanted to ask you, Rae-Anne, what type of person would be coming to do our workshop, the trauma training workshop?
So originally when people started doing training in vicarious trauma, it was initially aimed at people sort of in the helping professions, so perhaps social workers, caseworkers, counsellors, psychologists, doctors, people that are actually experiencing another individual's trauma, and those people are absolutely probably our prime audience, because when you're listening to stories and experiences through another person, they have an effect on you. Whether you realise them at the time or not, they actually do have an effect on you, and they have a cumulative effect the more that you hear stories or the more that you're in situations. And if you're not sure how to manage them, it ends up causing you some mental and physical health problems. But what I've been finding in the last couple of years with vicarious trauma is that in fact we're all at risk. So I'm finding a lot of people talking to me from professions like hairdressers, receptionists, people that work in the media, so people that not only do the reporting but people that do the editing of the news that we see the edited version of. I see people, school teachers, anyone that actually deals with the public. And then another level of that I'm seeing a lot of lately is all of us that use any form of internet or consumer created content, because the media that you see on YouTube or Facebook is created by the general public, so it hasn't got the censorship that we're familiar with. And sometimes, depending on your settings, say for instance on Facebook, a video might start without you realising it, and you see something and then you can't unsee it. Now lately there's been some little advances in that, where they have that little blurred out bit at the beginning that says, warning, this may contain graphic content, but it doesn't always happen, and often things are there because your friends may have reported it, and they may have said, this is disgraceful, let's report these people, let's make it go viral. That will still show in your feed, and you can't unsee something. And I know from my personal experience, there's been a couple of things I've seen, certainly in Ghana, in the newspapers where they're not edited, that I still can't unsee to this day, probably 6 years later. And also on Facebook, there was one video in particular, it was about 2012, just after the settings changed, and it was because one of my friends had reported it, and she put up there, this is vile, this is sick. To this day, I can still actually see that video, although I've learned how to protect myself. You have to learn to be mindful of what it is that you're looking at, and so there's many ways we can experience vicarious trauma. You can overhear a conversation between two colleagues, and I certainly know someone that had that very experience. She overheard a conversation of two colleagues in another cubicle, and that was between two social workers, and that was enough to completely traumatise her, and to this day she still struggles with what she heard. So it's really anyone. And
I think this is a really good point that you bring up. You and I both work in mental health services, and we both have done for some time. But when we reflect over our experiences of vicarious trauma, even though we've learnt to protect ourselves and we know the strategies to bring in place, I think it's interesting that our experience of vicarious trauma has always been outside of our workplace. And so for people that are in mental health services, that are counsellors, that are working in areas where there's a high likelihood of hearing about or seeing trauma, there are things in place to help to support and to help you work through these issues. But also, you're going into that work with a particular mindset. So you're going to work with that mindset of, I may experience something,
and a reasonable expectation that it could happen.
Exactly. So you're going in with a different mindset, and I think that whole thing with vicarious trauma is, it's interesting. You gave the example of your colleague that overheard other colleagues talking. She wasn't prepared to hear that. There was something unexpected. There was something. There was an element of surprise and unpredictability to that, and I think that's something that really underpins vicarious trauma, which is why you pointed out hairdressers, customer service people, are all people that can also suffer from vicarious trauma.
Definitely, and that person I spoke about, she actually left the job that day. The conversation she overheard traumatised her so greatly that she never went back. So it's just so important, and I've been talking about it for such a long time in the mental health training that I do, and I'm just so pleased that we're going to be offering this from our collective knowledge and the stuff that we've experienced over the years, and I'm really excited about what it is we're going to teach. So,
great. Awesome. I am too, and I think what we've both learned is that having an understanding and understanding the symptoms, being able to recognise the symptoms, and so trauma and new vicarious trauma training is about recognising the symptoms and then learning how to kind of protect and work with what's happening there.
Yeah. And you've got some symptoms where we've got a list because there's so many, but we'll read out a few.
And I think, putting this list of symptoms on this video, if you are sitting at home watching this video, if you have experienced vicarious trauma and you may not have recognised or understood it in the past, these are some of the symptoms that you may experience with vicarious trauma. Emotional numbing, social withdrawal, work-related nightmares, feelings of despair and hopelessness. It's pretty general, but when you're having those symptoms. Loss of a sense of spirituality and a more negative view of the world, a reduced sense of respect for your clients, no time or energy for yourself, and feeling that you can't discuss work with family or friends, or finding that you talk about work all the time that you can't escape it. And I think, often in comes these boundary issues when we do have a experience of vicarious trauma, that there is so much there that's wanting to be shared, that it comes out in ways that perhaps it wouldn't if we hadn't had that experience before.
And also, you could then in turn traumatise your friends and family because you might share things in the course of your work that they're not mentally prepared to hear.
That's right.
And to deal with, and so the cycle perpetuates.
Goes on. And that is very common, isn't it, with vicarious trauma?
Absolutely.
Some other symptoms that we've got here that we will go over thoroughly in the workshop are an increased sense of danger, reduced sense of safety. So you have a sense of increased danger, even if that danger isn't realistic. It's just a sense of it, a feeling of it inside. And certainly something that I experienced with my vicarious trauma incident many years ago was that I kept thinking of danger for my son. You know, so I would go into predicting dangerous situations for my son.
You start to see the world as threatening to everyone around you.
Exactly. Yeah. Sense of cynicism or pessimism, reduced motivation for your work, a loss of sense of control over your work and your life, lowered self-esteem and lowered sense of competence in your work, difficulty trusting others, and a lessened interest in spending time alone, and less time spent reflecting on your experiences. So certainly that feeling of just not wanting to go there. I don't want any reflection time. I don't want time to sit and meditate because this is what floats up when I have that time.
And then that can show in other ways as well, depending on what your natural predisposition is. So for some people that might present as increased use of alcohol or other substances, or not being able to be in any quiet space whatsoever. So it might mean you've got to have noise all the time, white noise or television or radio or earplugs to sleep, or it just can present in a myriad of ways.
Yes.
That not wanting to reflect because we want to shut out that which is so painful, so that can present in ways that you may not realise that you're actually doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, on the 20th of March, we are running the first Vicarious Trauma Training. Trauma and You is the name of the workshop. And we're going to be going over a lot of information that is super important for identifying, recognising, learning to deal with, and going over strategies to help cope with vicarious trauma, and how to also spot it in your workmates.
Absolutely.
If you're recognising some of these symptoms in people that you know or your work colleagues. So,
and then what to do about it, and then how to prevent yourself from being affected in the future. Because the reality is, we can't stop being exposed to certain things. We can mitigate some of it, especially with social media, but the reality is we are all at risk, and so how do we then recognise and sort of put some preemptive stuff in place to minimise the effects on us. So
absolutely.
We've got lots of good stuff we're going to do.
We have.
We're very excited.
So hopefully we will see you at the Vicarious Trauma Training, Trauma and You, and the ticket link should be below this video, or it might be above, or both. And we'll look forward to seeing you soon. If you've got any questions or queries about vicarious trauma or about our workshop coming up on the 20th of March, please do leave a comment below, send us a PM, or email us. We'll leave all the details on this with this video.
Absolutely. Look forward to seeing you then. Bye.
See ya.